Today I'm so thrilled because I have the opportunity to introduce you to a very courageous family that embodies a portrait of courage. Please join me in welcoming Sylvia Grossvold and Josh Wiener to the stage.
Thank you, Jana, and thanks for this opportunity to tell our stories. About 20 years ago, I met and married a wonderful woman named Kari Grossvold. I love the way she moved through the world, and we shared a strong connection to each other. But despite all that, during our first year of marriage, Kari struggled to find the joy within herself. Before long, she was hospitalized for the first time with severe depression, and a few months later, she was diagnosed as bipolar. As difficult as this time in our early marriage was, we got through it. It was a struggle, but it also brought us closer together. For the next 9 years, Kari and I lived what I would call a pretty normal life. We had great times together. We faced life's challenges the way that all committed couples do. I was proud of the way Kari learned to manage her condition, and I felt like she had the support that she needed. We brought a beautiful child into this world, Sylvia. I felt like a lucky guy. And then things became very challenging again. We got the chance to buy a house we were both really excited about, and our family moved for the third time. We spent a long time looking for that house, and as we talked about buying it, we reflected on it as a house that we were going to raise our daughter in, where we put down some real roots, and we were going to grow old there together. However, that move struck a nerve inside Kari. Change can be challenging for anyone, but this particular change was fraught with emotion for her. Just days after moving into that forever house, Kari slipped into a deep depression, and it rarely lifted. We tried to take it one day at a time. We tried to use many of the supports that we'd used in the past to bring her out of it. But this time, even though Kari fought very hard to stay with us, she didn't make it through, and she died when she jumped from the Vista Street Bridge. Suddenly, I had a 5-year-old daughter who really needed both of her parents. And now that her mother was gone, she especially needed me. I was a grief-stricken single dad, trying to figure out how to be there for my grieving daughter, who missed her mommy terribly. Sylvia clung to me wherever we went. She didn't let me out of her sight, and I had to figure out how to take care of myself, too. We needed all the support we could get, and we both needed help processing what we were going through. In the days and weeks that followed Kari's death, many people asked me if I knew about the Dougy Center, and I had never heard of it, but one of those people also gave me some of the center's literature. I'm the kind of person who reads the directions before I plug in the new toaster oven. So I did what I always do, and I read the pamphlet, and it sounded like an interesting place, a center for grieving children and their families, and that was definitely us. So I did what my friend suggested, and I called the Dougy Center. I vividly remember our first day there. Both of us were nervous. Sylvia wasn't sure she wanted to be there at all. She wouldn't let me leave her side at first. But from the beginning, everyone that we interacted with was thoughtful, understanding, without being patronizing. When a new person joins one of the Dougy Center's groups, everyone goes around the circle and shares a little bit of their story. One woman said she and her daughter had been going there for 7 years. I just thought, what? I'm going to be here for 7 years? Not everyone stays that long, but we actually did. I remember another woman thinking or talking about her life, her new partner. I remember her just seeming happy, like really authentically happy. And at that time, it was a totally foreign concept to me. How could anyone go through what I was going through and end up feeling happy? It took some time before I felt happy, but it was a relatively short time before I realized that Sylvia clung to me a little bit less. She went from being pretty sure she didn't want to attend her group and positive she didn't want to go unless I stayed with her the whole time, to being pretty sure that she couldn't bear to miss it and cheerfully going off to play with her new friends. I was still widowed, still an only parent, and my daughter still missed her mommy, but we didn't feel so odd and isolated anymore. And this place I thought maybe we could get support from for a short while, it turned into a place that we kept going back to year after year. No one ever asked us to pay a cent for the help and support we received, and no one ever suggested it was time for us to leave. I can't describe how important it was for us to experience that unconditional acceptance and to know that we were always welcome. After Kari died, many people reached out to me with messages of hope. Our old neighbor wrote me and shared the story of her brother who had also lost his wife. She explained that he had gone through an intense period of loss and grief, but he had emerged from that, and she told me he had a new partner and that they were living as a blended family and that he had found happiness again. At the time, I didn't have much faith in that scenario. I couldn't imagine how I was going to put together and pick up the pieces of this shattered life. I felt protective of Sylvia. I felt protective of what I had shared with Kari for quite some time. Rather than moving on, I felt it was more important to preserve what Sylvia, Kari, and I had shared together. But life is an interesting journey for everyone. And here I am. I have a new partner, Ellen, who is here with us today. We've created a family together that honors the love of the family that I built with Kari and the love that Ellen shared with her husband, Peter, who died around the same time that Kari did. Ellen's a terrific stepmom for Sylvia, and together we're parenting her in a way that I know that Kari would be proud of. The Dougy Center was a big part of why I can stand here today and talk about my story, about the ways that my life has moved forward in a direction filled with more hope and more love than I realized was possible. I can't thank the Dougy Center enough for helping me through the most difficult years of my journey, for supporting my daughter, and for being the safe space that we both needed. Now I'd like to give you the opportunity to hear from Sylvia.
Thanks, Dad. After my mom died, I didn't know what to do. My emotions were up and down, and I would cry about everything. First I wanted to talk, and then I didn't. When my dad asked me if I wanted to go back to school, I said yes, because I wanted some kind of normality restored to my life. But when I got to school, it was just as overwhelming as the swarms of people at home bringing food, flowers, and more food. It turns out that 5-year-olds aren't the best counselors. No one knew what to say or to do. That's why the Dougy Center is so awesome. I walked into that room and saw all those kids talking, laughing, and playing, but then sharing these tragedies in their lives. Because they learned, and I learned, something at the age of 5 that some people never learn. I learned how to be with kids right after a trauma, and I learned I wasn't alone. After my mom's death, I felt singled out by the world. I was the only person I knew whose parent had died, but at the Dougy Center, I met great friends, one of whom I'm still really close to today. Recently, I closed at the Dougy Center, which is what kids and families do when they decide not to continue to come on a regular basis. It was a hard decision to make. I made the Dougy Center my home for 7 years, more than half my lifetime. I have great memories and hard memories, but one thing I love about the Dougy Center is the closing ceremony. That's something that will stick with me. The person who's closing gets to choose one rough rock and two smooth rocks. The smooth rocks help represent your grief and how far you've come and how things have been smoothed over. The rough rock represents all the hardships you will carry with you and the hardships still to come. Everyone passes around the rocks and shares memories of you and the good times you've had together. I will always carry these rocks as a reminder of the path the Dougy Center has created for me. Our life is different now. My dad has found love again, and I have an amazing stepmom. I love where we live. I feel connected to my friends and family. Those are the smooth parts. And my mom is always with me. I carry the rough rock in tribute to all her loss has taught me. I'm trying hard to do what I can to help this amazing organization because I can't imagine how much harder my grief would have been without the Dougy Center. I want the same services to be here for every kid in the situation I went through, and that's why my dad and I are here today. We're here to ask you to give generously so that the services provided by the Dougy Center continue to be available for everyone who needs them, for other kids just like me. Thank you.